This is Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast, a podcast about, you guessed it, nonprofit fundraising. This isn't the first podcast about it, but definitely not like any others you've listened to. This is a podcast for fundraisers, by fundraisers. No boring charts or the same stale best practices you've heard for years. No ideas that only work in theory here. No concepts from people who aren't in the same trenches as you are every single day. Each week, you'll get practical strategies and tips to craft messages that engage donors and raise more money. This isn't smoke and mirrors. Everything has been pressure tested in the real world. Plus, you can start using them as soon as the episode ends. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Thomas and Steve Thomas.
Hi, welcome to Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. This is episode 18, How to Get More Undesignated Gifts. I'm Ryan Thomas, Vice President at Oneicity.
And I'm Steve Thomas, CEO and one of the founding partners of Oneicity.
You know, if you're in the fundraising game, that this doesn't stop at the end of the work day or the work week, whatever those are.
Yeah.
And you and I were in the situation where we had a podcast before we really had one.
Yeah.
Because we were talking fundraising at barbecues and dinner and all sorts of events that everybody else there wanted to talk about anything else but fundraising. But you and I had gotten a piece of mail or had seen something or had thought something and really needed to stop the party down and talk about it.
It was amazing people who thought the NFL was as interesting as fundraising. It just blew my mind. Yeah.
Clearly
well,
not.
It depends on the team.
I mean,
yeah.
It can be.
Okay.
But we realized, okay, let's get past people whose eyes glaze over and let's just start.
Find other crazy people to have conversations with. And,
yeah, it's great.
Come to the table.
So we added mics and here we are.
Yep.
And
let us know how you want your burger done. Medium well.
Yeah, a little pink, but not too much.
Yeah, or burned.
Yeah, or burnt. We can do that too. And at Oneicity, we're a boutique ad agency. We focus on nonprofit marketing and fundraising. That's what gets us out of bed. And the company's been around well over a decade, but a lot of people on our team measure their time in fundraising in decades. So we really have a super team, kind of the Avengers put together. Give us your 5-star reviews.
I've been listening to video, doing some editing, and I'll just say...
You've been listening to video?
Yeah. Well, I've been watching, I've been editing, but I've been paying attention to what we've been saying, and we sound a little pathetic in a couple of places asking for 5 stars. And so I'm just going to say, give us a 1 star. I don't care. I'm just going to be bold about it.
Okay.
That may be reverse psychology, though.
Oh, maybe. Okay, we'll see if it doesn't work with my kids. Maybe it would work with
we get a bunch of 1 stars. I'll take responsibility.
Okay, yeah.
I found how you can just delete those on Apple.
Oh, perfect.
Just make them disappear.
They won't even happen.
They never happen. It'll be great.
It's the complaint box with a false bottom.
Yeah.
Now, if you have any questions or comments, our complaint box doesn't have a false bottom. Podcast at Oneicity works. Our last episode 17, was a mailbag episode, taking questions.
It was amazing.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So send any of that to podcast at Oneicity.
But today's topic came in through
podcast at Oneicity. Yeah,
that?
so it works. This is your work, listeners, you driving the bus, and we prefer that because it lets us be more efficient and have to do less planning and thinking, okay, well...
Even less planning that is
talk about
observable.
Gifts again.
Yeah.
So we'll start with mail call, which we try to take something out of the wild, something fundraising related, and talk about it with you and talk about what we liked or didn't like. Mine's going to be really interesting in one way or another, so I'm going to start with you.
Oh, maybe go first. Okay.
Yeah.
So I got an email. Let's talk. I may give you a clickbait header. Let's talk thermometers.
Oh, okay. That's a good.
Okay. So yeah, that's kind of your that'd be a subject line. So one of the organizations that I follow had a matching gift thing. We've talked about matching gifts and how that works. And it was interesting. I got an email that said 68% of our X number of $1,000 matching challenge. So that's how far they'd gotten on their campaign.
Okay.
And in all candor, like donors, I didn't read this email when it came in. And so they had 3 days remaining, and I checked them on day like 6 or 7 of the campaign.
So when the match has expired.
It's expired. So I went ahead and clicked the link because I thought, hey, I'm on a podcast.
Let's see what happens.
Hey,
who knows?
What happens. Yeah. They didn't get to the top end, or they didn't update their thermometer because it's still sitting at 68%. Low these, I don't know, maybe 28 days later now. So let's talk about thermometers, and those are whether it is on a big community board, a piece of plywood that you're spray painting, or you've built a widget, or however you're doing it. So the concept, the idea is this gives donors a piece or an idea of the whole.
Mm-hmm. Lets them see what's been done, but look, there's work to be
there's
done.
work to be
There's
done.
motivating.
And what I have typically said to clients about thermometers like this that keep score is one of the things going on there, whether you're doing it for a match or you're doing it for a campaign. Sometimes for a campaign you're trying to get so many dollars to buy an X. You're revealing how well you're doing. And so I have a tendency to push the thermometer, your goal amount a little lower than I think I can do for a client, and that's what I recommend that you do is
It's like name that tune.
Yeah, don't guess don't be too bold there. This is not a time for the big reach because it really feels lousy to have scraped together, let's call it, $500. I've got to turn over the couch cushions and find $500. I put my $500 in. I go and check how we're doing on the thermometer, and we're still short.
Almost like you've backed a wrong horse at the racetrack.
Exactly. Never having been to a racetrack, but the concept works. So I just want to say, weigh in your mind whether you really know you're going to get there. Mm-hmm. The way thermometers work so fabulously is if you do like a capital campaign where you get several gifts already lined up ahead, and you know they're coming.
Yeah.
And so then you do your thermometer so that it goes 25% full, 50% full. In one day we got 60% full. And so that when it goes public, air quoting around that it is not done because you're not lying to people, but that becomes an accelerator, an involvement device. People, we said on a previous podcast, no one loves to give the last dollar if they think you're going out of business. Mm-hmm. But people love to be the gift that puts you over the top.
Apple used to do big contests in iTunes downloads. If you were the billionth iTunes download, or I can't remember the numbers, you got massive amounts of swag.
Yeah.
Driving that, and you don't have to do a contest, but it's that same formula.
It's the idea. And Hoots and I, one time, we ended up giving a gift that we really weren't planning to give, but she was watching the thermometer, and they were, I don't remember what it was.
They were X away.
They were $300 or $400 short, and I get this text, I'm giving this much to X, and I'm like, okay. And then that night at dinner, I'm like, what was that about? She said, I put him over the top.
Yeah, and it was a very specific amount. I'm giving $247.50.
Yeah. So just be careful about why you're thermometerizing your fundraising, and then manage, like everything else in fundraising, manage it so that the public perception and the appearance from the public is beneficial, not a wah feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I got. Thermometers, be careful.
So I have an envelope.
You actually brought your homework this time. That's great.
I did. First time in maybe 6 episodes.
Yeah.
An envelope from Publishers Clearinghouse, which first is still in business.
That's exactly what was my question.
I happened to see a commercial for them over the weekend, and they are still promising loads of money.
Well, fascinating, because I didn't get one, and we don't live that many zip codes apart.
No, it's
you're a special.
Well, no, this came with. I got my son a summertime wasting car and driver or motor trend.
It's an involvement device
subscription, and this was in the. So the magazine came sealed
rode
in
plastic. Yeah,
and it was in there.
There you go.
And so as he's opening, I see that and I snatch it, and he
what's it say?
he goes, well, that's junk mail. And I'm like, well, I kind of work in junk mail.
So what's it say? Oh, you're opening this live.
Yeah, live, and this is unsealed.
Okay.
So we're gonna find out what's in.
No,
but
it is sealed.
Well, it is sealed. It is sealed. The reason I pulled
You could have
it,
been that guy on the Academy Awards.
oh
who
gosh,
flew
giving it to La La Land. The reason I pulled it is because, at least historically, we'll find out if this rings true in this envelope. Publishers Clearinghouse has mastered the strategy of making you jump through hoops just to enter into what I'm convinced is a rigged sweepstakes. But regardless, you don't just sign your name and send it back. You have to cut something out, paste it on this square,
Insert it into that little
and insert it. Which in digital we preach frictionless, less friction, less steps.
Yeah.
And in direct mail, you may have come into contact where there's a device that you want a donor to tear off and send back along with their gift. It comes from the same psychology, and in many cases, the literal practice of Publishers Clearinghouse getting tons and tons of people to do this. So we're going to see what is actually in here. And I didn't bring a letter opener.
Great
so
sound effects.
Yeah.
That's good.
So it's sweepstakes facts. I'm going to, I can win a ton of money. Important. In bright yellow, looks like a caution. Act now before it's too late.
Ooh.
The number one reason why people lose out on the fortune of a lifetime is not timely returning what turns out to be the winning entry.
Aww.
Don't risk letting that happen to you. Return your entry at once.
That's a little more. That's north of a nudge, there, isn't it?
Oh man.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. So if you get the back first, it says turn around. And for video, show you get that really important message.
Yeah.
So
and they tell you it's important.
Yep.
They don't even let you draw your own conclusion.
So they're using a deadline.
Oh, yeah.
Act now before it's too late. But without telling you it's a deadline, which saves them on printing costs, they can print these a ton. This can always be what goes in with their stuff. We've got the reply envelope.
Is it a BRE? No, it's a CRE.
It's a CR.
You got to pay your own stamp.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, times are changed.
Pretty basic letter written not quite in old time Arial, but pretty close, like it came off a typewriter.
That's courier.
At the top, immediate action required regarding $5,000 a week for life, August 31st, authorized prize. Attention recipient, and this next part is highlighted, you found it. This notice with the processing code shown here indicates that the time period for claiming eligibility to win $5,000 a week for life will soon expire for this entry below.
$5,000 a week.
Yeah, don't do the math, because if you do the math, you're going to be really tempted to fill this out,
That's
which is their game.
That's like the way it works with monthly gift things.
So what they're saying is they are soon going to be doing the drawing, and there's no way for you to win this $5,000 a week if you don't enter. The last paragraph says, what we need from you.
Oh, nice call to action.
Which I do
Very
like,
clear.
and it's underlined in pen. And all you have to do is to claim this $5,000 a week for life winning opportunity is return the official entry form below by the deadline.
Which looks a lot like a check. And it just happens to be made out in the amount of $5,000.
Yeah. You just got to return this, and there's nothing to buy. For your convenience, we've even included a reply envelope.
I haven't seen one of these in years.
Well, and I haven't seen one of these without something to clip.
Yeah. So, one of the things that's interesting about that is let's just assume these guys, if we don't love them, are pragmatic. Yep. And so that is it a Dear Ryan? No, it can't be Dear Ryan. It's all totally, yeah. Oh, interesting.
And I like the highlighter. They've got a highlighted arrow down the right margin pointing to
$5,000 a week.
For life. So Ed McMahon may not show up at your house.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah, he's definitely not showing up at your house. If he does, that's even crazier than winning $5,000 a week.
You may want to review your Walking Dead episode.
Yeah. Oh gosh. But that's some on the fly, live and in person, looking at some of the
That's kind of like
the best long-standing people in the game.
like an unboxing kind of a thing.
Yeah,
So,
it is. I should have done it slower and with that
top
ASMR
down video.
Oh
That'd
yeah,
be nice.
we can get a multicam.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll get some B-roll footage and drop that in.
So in addition to getting,
So what was your conclusion with that? I mean, you want the $5,000.
yeah, I
a week.
want the $5,000 a
It'd
week.
be a pay cut for you.
Yeah,
But you,
yeah. Oh, gosh. Oh man, I wish. I think one of the big takeaways is we've talked about deadlines, and they are pushing a deadline in almost every paragraph of that, but without even including a date in many cases. They are just getting your brain to think about at some point soon they're doing a drawing and I can't win if I don't enter.
I love how clear they are about that. That's such a great motivator, and it is. I mean, that's a duh, but it's a great motivator. At the
Has
same
to be.
time.
And so they're playing on my consequence.
Yeah. It's the
My
scaffold-
participation's clear.
scaffolding.
The problem is I don't have $5,000 a week. The solution is they'll give it to me.
Absolutely. Although I did read the fine print, and the odds are not in your favor.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't cost you anything. Just
Yeah,
in there.
that-
Yeah, get in there. Give me your address. That's
what they-
That's what they're looking for.
We all know that's what their game is.
And that's another episode. So,
Yeah, we're getting to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Not giving them your address is something you should be doing, but something else you should be doing.
Yeah. It's okay.
We had to open a fake P.O. box and give them the address and then see what all junk mail we get that we didn't subscribe for. But whatever.
That's a fun idea.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Okay.
So something you should be doing is something that you can put into place right after the episode ends and will help increase your fundraising. You'll get benefits. Some of the things in the meat of our episodes we talk about being long tail takes a while to get anything out of it or get it put up and implemented. Not the case with this. So mine this week, again, I didn't have homework to bring, but I would have, so I'm on a roll, is that your fundraising should be emotional, but not your fundraising strategy decisions. So your
I like
fundraising
that.
should be
That's
emotional,
good. Yeah.
but your fundraising strategy decisions shouldn't be. Starting a new initiative or strategy, you need to sit down when you decide, okay, we are going to do this or we do want to set this up. Everybody who is in the company or part of the team sit down and say, okay, how are we going to define this as a success? Mm-hmm. How are we going to know if it's a failure? Mm-hmm. And how are we going to know it's meh, but still worth doing? Mm-hmm. But doing that before you start, very important, not in the heat of it or after the fact. You know, if you're doing a test, you can do the same thing. Okay, we want to test this versus that. Think about, okay, what are we going to do with this knowledge if we have it? Okay.
How do we act on it?
What do we, mm-hmm. Okay, it's great to know that, but then what? And if you know your goal before you start, it's going to save you wasted effort. It's going to get you focused on year over year doing the things that work. And if you work the other direction, something that may have been difficult or not fun, you might paint that emotionally as a failure, even though it did work. And so by putting clear benchmarks in place, you can say, okay, that fit the success metric, but that really sucked. So we ought to do this again, but how do we keep this going but be more efficient this time and not just say, well, that was hard to do. I don't even want to, there's no way that was a success because that everyone in the room hates that. We're not doing that again. Because we've all been there.
I'm working on a project just like that. I love the distinction of, if I understood right, and if I was paying attention, plan with logic and reason, that other part of your brain, and but use emotion in your persuasion, influence, fundraising. I like that. Yeah, that's
we talk
good.
about that a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Need to use emotion in the work, not in deciding the work and planning the work.
Well, and so often how you feel about how it went, or the one critique or complaint you got on that, can outweigh all of the positives that came out of the piece. Oh, that's great. I like that a lot.
So it's yours.
Oh, okay. So,
And do you have a pithy? Because I kind of came up with a slogan. I might turn it into a hashtag.
I got yeah.
Okay, all
I got a subject line. Are you ready?
Okay.
Are you average?
Oh, that's quite a leading question.
Isn't that great? So I like a lot of people. I'm on some email lists, and I follow a guy named Josh Spector.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he's an email and content guy, and I just find him interesting because he's doing different things than we are, but yet he's really sharp in the way things go and how he does it, and his strategies appear to be sound, and he's a good dude, and he's done some Hollywood stuff.
Okay. He's a big builder of your thing.
Yeah. So Josh,
he can
when you
create
hear
content.
this, let us know.
Yeah. Come over to us. We'd love to work with you.
So subject: Are you average? ? And then in this email, all it says is, here's a cool way to find out. That is the entire email, except for a parenthetical where it comes from, and then his you have to, the footer for your email. Isn't that great?
Okay,
So here's
I haven't read this one. I'm really interested in what's going to be.
I'm not going to show you. So, what I want to say is that the do this, try this thing here is, while we've talked at various points about email and subject lines, pre-header text, all that stuff. Here's something that's really interesting. If you're doing a donor validation piece, so say you want to just let donors know the difference they made in a mass setting, and you've got some hot content and some good stuff, just send them something like, here you go, no charge on this copywriting. Did you make a difference? Did your gift make a difference?
Ooh. ?
And then here's how to know. Here's how to find out. Whatever it is, because I was like, where's the rest of this email? Your donors will be the same. That's it.
You're waiting for everything to load.
Yeah. So you click on it, and this takes you to an interesting site, which maybe another time. And if you're nice to me, I'll show you what it is, or you can find an email.
I just got to go into the email.
Yeah. Okay. So rather than worry about big images and long emails, and give them one sentence with a killer subject line. I bet your open rates will be higher and pop, because people will be like, well, yeah.
Because the goal in all of email is to get somebody's attention, stop their scroll through the inbox, get them to open it. And then once they're in the email, you want to get them to click or follow your funnel.
Yeah.
And that short and long are both a tool in your bag, but I haven't seen a short email that provocative and interesting
and
in a long time. That's really well done.
And it's on point, and it doesn't even take, I'll give you this hint. It doesn't even take you to a property it appears he owns. So this is just
He truly saw this.
in New Orleans, they call it lagniappe. This is the extra. This is that little gift. This is a little something for you.
He wanted this to be on your radar.
On it. You got my email, Josh. Let me know.
Well, he has the podcast. That didn't come to podcast, so he actually doesn't have your email.
No, he does have my email because it came to my email.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
It's on his list.
Whatever. So on this podcast, in addition to emails and reviews and sloths, that we talk a lot about sloths. We talk a lot about gifts on the podcast. It's a fundraising podcast after all, but not every gift is the same. Like, you don't You don't love every gift the same necessarily, just like your children. I have multiple children, and if you have multiple kids, you can say that you love them both the same, but you don't.
There are sometimes you don't.
Now, it may change day to day, but
There you go.
they're not always equal.
They're all special.
And gifts are the same way, right?
Where are you headed with this?
We're talking about undesignated, designated gifts.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they're not all the same. So in that realm, an undesignated gift, and so let's back up and do some definition. That's everybody's favorite time is definition
Of terms.
glossary time.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Designated gift, I'm going to say, is a gift designated for a certain part of your organization or cause or program, usually associated with
Can we go to the
GL
sloth
fund.
Let's go to a sloth. So
Yeah, let's do a sloth.
Okay. So
This would be for a designated gift for the sloth fund, could be for the sloth synthetic tree branches.
yeah, the trees the sloths are in their enclosure have just completely fallen apart, and it's actually unsafe for the sloths now. So for $1,725, that's $1,725.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can
They're
help us
expensive.
have an artificial sloth tree designed for the sloths.
And you give us that. The only way we will use that 1725 is for that synthetic tree branch
Yeah.
enclosure.
Yeah. The problem is we raised $75,000.
Yeah, we raised 75,000 of those. We only need a few, which takes us to undesignated gifts, which are gifts that can be used within legal, tax, IRS reasons anywhere in your organization.
Yeah. All right. So I got to press pause here and say, so we're neither practicing accounting nor law in this moment. This discussion is different than restricted funds, which often happen with endowments, sometimes with estate planning and that kind of thing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about where someone is saying, I want to give for a sloth tree, and making it very clear what their intention is. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, good. Let's go to the next segment.
So of those, let's just ask the dumb question, which does an organization prefer?
Well, as someone who has both had feisty and fiery discussions over this and accidentally kind of created not once it got to donors, but a moment of conversation with clients when the awareness of how designation might have worked in their situation. Let's say you and I have talked a bunch, and we continue to talk a bunch about specificity. So you can accidentally or unintendedly create a designated situation because of your specificity.
The specificity of your ask.
Yeah, you're driving into, we got to have a this, or we've got to have
we
a
could have
that.
accidentally asked for all of those sloth synthetic tree dollars and meant we need some, but we also need a lot of things. But this is our topic of the month. We really want to feature.
It turns out that sloths need the temperature set at a certain temperature, and we have to pay the electric company to keep the air conditioning on that way.
Yeah, those
or
air
they-
conditioners are
they
not
pass
cheap.
out, and so one of the things I learned in fundraising, 1,000 years ago when I was getting started, is no one wants to pay for the light bill or the admin cost.
Which are people's salaries.
Yeah, if you ask somebody salaries, you
can get around.
you may can get there, but they don't want to pay for accounting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I'm not giving my money for accounting. I'm going to give my money to save the sloths
And IT, making sure the computers work.
Exactly. So one of the things that's critically important is the understanding that specificity is critical for fundraising, yet you have to have your eye on when you ask the donor to give the dollars. What is their understanding? Is their understanding that it is only 100% only going to go for the cost of the synthetic tree or whatever it is and we use sloths because that's a pretty there's not a lot of sloth sanctuaries.
There's not a lot of people we can tick off by butchering.
I've resisted the urge to Google sloth sanctuaries because I don't want to come up with something else. So anyway, people want to help your cause. The specificity helps, but what you have to do is, as you get to the clear ask portion, is while you have sharpened the point on your descriptions and your examples and the kinds of things you need, you have to broaden it when you are at the ask stage, where the donor has a clear understanding of what they're giving their dollars for.
And that could be done, again, taking our favorite sloth analogy, talking to them about the problem with the trees breaking. These are heavy sloths. They've been overfed by millennials.
I thought we were going to say we fatten them up because the millennials didn't feed them well.
Okay.
Either way,
they're big guys at this point, and they're hanging on. They're breaking the branches, and one sloth, kind of fell, and he didn't die, but he got hurt, and so we're trying to fix it.
Sad.
That's the story we're telling. That's the sloth example of the month, and then we get to the ask, and you could say for your gift of whatever $17.25. Will go to helping a sloth a day, a month. Pick your metric with things like the synthetic tree branch, like air conditioning set at the right temperature, the perfect sloth food.
Yeah.
All of these other things.
All the things that roll up into making our sloth rehabilitation a vibrant, productive program.
Best one in the world. And by making sure that the specific thing you've been talking to a donor about in the lines or paragraphs above is included in your list of things with the ask, there's still some harmony there. They call back to each other.
Yeah.
But you're not making a donor think, to your point, that this is all just for those synthetic tree branches, because you could be in a situation where I talked to a donor about, it's like being gift card rich, where you could have, have $10,000 or $1,000, maybe it's from a wedding or graduation, of Target gift cards, but not be able to pay rent or your phone bill.
That's a great example.
Because I got a lot of Target dollars, but I don't have a lot of actual dollars.
And your landlord
he won't take Target.
Your savings and loan company are not.
Try mailing that thing into Bank of America. They're going to take it and then still charge you.
I put the pin and a Post-it note on it. It's good. It's going to be great.
So by locking that money up, you can end up being really rich in this thing and spending all the money on all the tree branches you can.
Yeah.
And hurt in all your other areas.
Yeah. And it's really a simple thing. And let's talk about the flinch factor. I have always counseled clients to never do anything that if a donor asks you a question about it, you have this flinch of, oh my goodness, I wish they hadn't asked me that question. So
it's probably a good rule in general.
Well, I guess that's true. So just understand. Don't focus so much. And I had a conversation with somebody a year or so ago where they had accidentally, they had completely 100%. Complete handcuff, locked the designation in, and they were saying, "What can I do?" And I'm like, "You locked it up, baby. It's nothing." So here's the kinds of things you want to do. This happens sometimes in general kinds of things where you're out there talking to the general population. That is a harder thing to fix. If you've done that with majors, or you've intentionally, say you need $50,000 for the sloth sanctuary, and you've raised your thermometer went out the top, and you've raised a whole lot more. You pick up the phone and you talk to the major donors in this group, the people who love you the most, and you explain, hey, we raised more money than we expected. Your gift clearly was for this. I have two choices now in this moment of extreme ethics. I'm going to say, I'll refund your gift because we've overfunded that, or would you be okay with making that an undesignated gift? Guess what most, if not all, donors are going to do? They're going to go, don't worry about it. I totally get
fill
that.
out whatever form you got to do.
Yeah,
because
make that work.
by going to a major donor with that, not only are you respecting them,
Absolutely.
you're giving them a peek behind the curtain into your operations. You're patting yourselves on the back by saying, hey, this thing went really well. We did really well. Without saying that,
Yeah.
you're humble bragging.
I
It
guess
doesn't
that's
come
true.
off,
Yeah.
but it doesn't come off that way.
No, not at all.
And you're letting the donor be a hero for you twice.
Yeah.
And they're helping you and the sloths
Yeah.
extra times.
Yeah. And you probably have some language around essential care or other needs or that kind of thing. Don't think about that as disclaimer language or weasel words. You just broaden the funnel. Just make sure that you make that as broad a funnel as you can.
Because it can be done. You could put overfund language, which is, hey, if
Very
we
appropriate.
get more than this fund needs, all extra funds are going to be diverted to the general fund. We're needed most.
Not diverted.
Okay, moved.
Yeah.
We've written. I don't have it with me, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, so one of the things to say is I know a lot of organizations they've done and some of the oversight organizations like ECFA and others. The advice, and I think this is a great thing to do with a board, is you have a board motion that is part of your organizational structure that says when a project is overfunded, the board has the ability to, or whoever the board designates has the ability to designate that within the overall scope of the organization. That allows you to have and I'm air quoting again, the legal IRS kind of thing where you're covered. So that covers you from if someone's attorney calls you. That's not going to happen.
But it doesn't cover you with a donor.
Exactly. What you want to do is make sure the donor understands, and so then it moves forward in a very clear way.
So that's how, I don't want to say it every time, but that's one of the many ways where you can get more undesignated funds, which is your goal.
And here's what's weird is you can ask for very focused things that you cultivate and actually close, allowing those words, as undesignated. Not like a magic trick where you're shuffling.
Yeah, that kind of looked David Copperfield there for a minute.
It's like no. But make it so that it is clear. Here's the need, but we also are doing this broader work, and that becomes clear to a donor as you get those words. The trick is, unfortunately, there are people who in this time of COVID, where people feast and famine kind of things. There were a lot of people who did really well, and a lot of people who did less well. They were very, very, very specific about some of their COVID fundraising and had bit them on the bottom.
Yeah.
And so this happens in everything from capital campaigns to big projects. The trick is just be specific in your influence, your persuasion pieces, how you're fundraising, how you're communicating with donors. And make it clear as you turn the corner in your ask that it is for this and other things, so that the donor's not surprised. No flinch factor.
If you don't flinch when you explain it to the donor,
Exactly,
it's a win.
100%.
The other rule of thumb, kind of calling back to a few episodes ago, Aunt Ruby.
Oh yeah.
And does Aunt Ruby understand what she needs to do with this envelope? This Publishers Clearinghouse thing is very clear. If you're wondering about this, or you can do it as a pretty routine part of your process, you can either change your mindset or get someone who's not involved in the day-to-day work of that project and the team to just read through your fundraising piece and just ask them the question, where does a donor think their dollars are going to if they give to this?
Yeah.
And if they give you the answer you're looking for, great. Yeah. If not, you engage and try to figure out where the disconnect is.
Yeah, and if you're in a larger organization, this is a conversation with CFO, whoever is the is the controller. This is again back to, this is not about a restricted gift. This is not about like an endowment or something that says you can only use this in these time frames and you must protect the principal or any of those kind of things. This is about, am I buying a van to haul the sloths around, or am I buying a van to haul the sloths around and everything else around helping the sloths live a better life? That is a critical piece that you don't have to have big, fat, non-specific fundraising to avoid undesignated giving. You just have to know what you're doing in terms of specificity and the broadening of the ask.
You truly can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Which is why the sloths are a little
on the heavy side.
A little big.
Because we are giving them
chunky
the cake and letting them eat it.
They're chomps.
We don't mandate exercise.
With their claws, they don't get the treadmill.
Yeah, it's hard. They tear them up.
It's hard. Then we'd have to buy more. We'd have to have more sloth.
That's right.
Treadmill dollars.
Carrying the baking and food analogy for me into On Your Radar, which is a segment where you and I trade articles, thoughts, books that usually are somewhat fundraising related.
I thought you were going to say somewhat interesting.
Yeah, sometimes now they're always interesting to at least me. At least mine are, because that's why I put them in.
Yeah.
And it came from you and I trading emails back and forth and saying, "Hey, have you read this? This ought to be on your radar to read."
Yeah.
This week, mine.
We don't worry too much about connecting fundraising and nonprofit to these things.
No, this is more
just for your own.
This is something interesting you ought to read.
Your edification.
You'll think better and smarter. It'll be interesting. You won't be sorry.
Yeah.
So mine tagline, keeping the theme going.
Are you
is,
average?
Yeah, hard butter in Canada.
That's a great line. I mean, yeah.
A few months ago, it may have been towards the end of last year. People on Twitter and Instagram started tweeting and griping that their butter that they would take out of the fridge and put on the counter as they got everything ready to bake didn't soften at the same rate as it had before. And if you bake and you cook, you know that is not actually a first world problem. I mean, that's a thing.
It is a thing.
And people were griping. And there are lots of things that people gripe about, conspiracy or, all of these things.
Bigfoot swap my butter.
Yeah. And eventually a foodie science guy, I didn't write his handle down, but I think his handle was literally Food Professor.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Tweeted, "Hey, anybody else notice that butter seems like it's
harder
at room temperature? It's not softening the same rate." And he got all these replies like, "Oh my gosh, I've been griping about this.
You finally identified the problem."
And I've only got 5 followers, but they all know I'm pissed off about this. And so he said, "Okay, I'm gonna do some investigative work into this. This is interesting." And he talked to people he knew at all points of the
butter process
supply chain, and he found that it came from an acid that is in a supplement that farmers give to cows in the feed to increase the butter fat yield.
Oh my gosh, that's more than I wanted to know about butter production.
But they've always been doing this, so it's perfectly safe. The change happened during the pandemic. Butter demand increased. So they had
to go faster with the butter.
They had to put more of this acid in.
They had to churn it faster
to get more out of it.
You know what? They were utterly surprised.
Oh my
God!
I knew you were gonna have one. I didn't know what it was gonna be. Okay, that was good. So
I'm not gonna be cowed by that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that one was not as good.
Okay,
and they tracked it down. It's all fine. They've caught back up, and they now have soft butter in Canada. But for a while, they had hard butter.
Shoo.
And no matter how crazy something sounds at the beginning, it's worth a little bit of a dive.
Oh, yeah.
You
never know.
You just never know.
So you got a fundraising connection with this at all?
No, not really. Not
Okay.
this one.
I like that. Hard butter in Canada.
Yeah. I want to put that on a subject line or an OE teaser. We just... I can't make that work right now.
So if you're a small Canadian nonprofit, we're ready to work for you.
In the dairy industry, we got you.
Yeah.
That one's free.
Okay, we could go with cows. Okay, mine is, there's a wonderful TV media video guy named Charlie Mosier down in Houston. Mosier is a friend and a kind of a distant partner. He knows I love the whole idea of cognitive bias. And there's a whole range of things. Dunning-Kruger is my favorite cognitive bias because I find it amusing how the more you know about something, or no, wait. So
Yeah.
So he sent me an infographic that someone had created that's 50 cognitive biases in the modern world.
I think I've seen.
Have
this.
you seen that?
Yeah,
So
this is
the
really
one
good.
I loved is the Ikea effect. Have you heard of this one? I hadn't heard of this. This is new.
I didn't read. I looked at the infographic.
So Michael Norton, 2011, Harvard Business School. So you know it's
Ooh,
true. Yeah. The IKEA effect is the thing that we have. People will place a higher intrinsic value on something. They have had some element of creation or assembly, or they've been involved with the putting it together. IKEA effect.
Like, what do you mean intrinsic?
In other words, I will value something more if I put it together. They give
That's
the example.
assuming I put it together.
Yeah, well, they give the example of the Build-A-Bear workshop.
That works.
Okay.
But my 3-legged
No, you know,
IKEA table, because the 4th leg instructions didn't make any sense.
It's one of the reasons Nike allows you to kind of do some swooshes, right?
Oh, yeah.
I've shifted over to Oakley sunglasses. I didn't know that Oakley. I mean, yeah, I could, I can't quite put my picture, but I can put my
close.
initials. I can do all this other stuff. That's sort of dumb, but I can see why that involves you. So the IKEA effect fits for nonprofit. I'm actually going to connect this.
It might fit.
No,
you got to hope it does. Read the instructions.
Here it comes. Is the idea that if you ask your donors to tell you how they want to do tours or the days that you want to have an open house, or you open that door for some involvement. Now, here's the key. You always want to be sure that you remain the expert in your field. You're not asking a donor to tell you how to operate your ministry or your cause, but you ask them for things that are appropriate for them to give feedback and to give information about. And then, at least according to the IKEA effect and cognitive bias, they're more inclined to value that because they've had some input. So I'll run the URL on the audio portion of the podcast. Send a podcast at oneicity.com, and
We'll tell you where to find it.
I'll send you the link. But it is amazing, and this is a super well done
The infographic is extremely instructive.
And it's fun because they have broken it up by memory, social learning, belief, money, and politics, and so you can kind of see how they all play together. And the kinds of things they talk about is things like the help effect, curse of knowledge, which we've talked about, spotlight effect.
There's your Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah. Automation bias, the Google effect.
Confirmation bias, third person.
So it's really interesting. And if you're intrigued at all, you need to find this or find us, and I'll get it sent to you. Cognitive bias, the IKEA effect. Put that thing together, and hopefully you don't have any extra screws.
Yeah, if you have any screws left over or a screw loose, you might have a problem. Well, this was episode 18 of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. And on our next episode, episode 19, we're getting close to 20. On our next episode...
XX.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was like, no, we know the number. We don't have to template it in. On our next episode, We'll show how hiring a documentary film crew to follow your team for the entire fourth quarter will help increase your holiday fundraising.
That actually might be true.
All of the things I list in this thing are true. Find a lie. We're gonna make a playlist of all of those, and they're all truth. It's truth bombs at the end of each episode.
Sorry, I blew your run out. Sorry about that.
This one wasn't the best, but it is true. But it was.
And you put it on the talk.
Yeah, I'll put it on the talk. That'd be great. Anyway, watch The Office, hire a crew, make more money. It's a win. I'm Ryan Thomas.
And I'm Steve Thomas. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Tune back in next week for another fresh episode of Not Your Father's Fundraising Podcast.